So today we're really lucky to have Dr. Stefanos Xenarios with us, who will be presenting in a little bit. Before we get to the presentation, we're going to give a little bit of a introduction about Gen Con itself and have a chance to go around the room, and you can introduce yourself if you'd like. So Gen Con focuses on bringing together and supporting gender scholars in Kazakhstan and those who study the Central Asian context. Our primary purpose is to generate research design to make meaningful change in various areas of society with regard to gender equality and the advancement of women. Gen Con is interdisciplinary and based at Nazarbayev University. So what does Gen Con do? We hold research talks like this and forums as well. We connect gender scholars. We conduct funded and unfunded research studies. We publish scholarship for local and international audiences. We develop partnerships locally and internationally. We provide mentoring and expert consultation. And we work to empower the scholarly community. So for instance, currently, if anyone is interested, we have a call for papers out for the European Education Journal. And this is looking specifically at gender equity in higher education during COVID. So in Central Asia. And if you're interested, we can send the link. The PowerPoint will also be available later. And I'm really pleased about this next step and getting to work with Arai on it, Dr. Arai, who is here. Okay, so we would like to thank today's organizers, Aygul Rakisheva, Almira Tabaeva, Douglas Cohen-Miller, Joseph Yap, and Jana Ajakanova. So now let's go around the Zoom room and introduce ourselves. We can just say, right, who are you and where you're from, what brought you here today. And I'm just gonna look at the screen and kind of see the first person. So Aygul, maybe you can start and then maybe you can start calling out other people that you see on your screen and I will check the chat.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this organization, to this event. I'm really glad to be here because I'm new joined person and assisting with organizing gender talks. And I'm Nazarbayev University alumni, graduated Master of Science in Educational Leadership program, now working as RA at GEC. And I'm also really glad to be here because I'm a young woman and have some research interests in gender, especially in gender inequality in our country. So we'll be glad to participate actively and would be glad to be helpful. So thank you. And the next person whom I see is Dr. Stefanos Xenarios.
Let's actually, Stefanos, do you mind? We'll come back to you. We'll do the big introduction in a minute.
Жанна Изикенова.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Aygul. So my name is Jana. I'm second-year PhD student at Graduate School of Education, and also I work as research assistant and also helping Gen Con consortium as well. So I'm so happy to see everyone, and also my research interests include gender, mother scholars, and leadership. Welcome everybody and looking to hear Professor Stefanos.
Thank you, Jana. Let's see, I see now Almira and then Arai.
Okay. Hi. Is it me or is there another Arai? Sorry.
My apologies. I included two people. I mentioned two different people. Why don't you go ahead, Arai, and then after you, then Almira, you can come on in.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm connecting to you from Moscow. So I'm currently in Moscow at the Higher School of Economics doing my postdoc. I did my PhD at Nazarbayev University, Graduate School of Education. So I was one of the first graduates of the PhD program there. And my research interests are gendered aspects of student experience, so student experience in general, and gendered aspects of student experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Iran.
So is it my turn?
Come on in, Almeda.
Yeah. So hello everyone. My name is Almira. I come from Uzbekistan and I did my master's degree in India. That's why this theme of the presentation was very interesting for me, as my MA thesis was based on gender comparison in South Asia and Central Asia. So I'd love to hear about the presentation. So shortly about my research interests. Now I work with Professor Nourin Durrani in the political education economy analysis. And I'm very thankful for Professor Anna, who has included me in the projects just after the maternity leave. So I'm very happy to be here and happy to see you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Almira. So the next person is Nurjamal Sandbekova.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you for organizers for such event. My name is Nurjamal Sandbekova. I'm an MPA student. My future major is Master in Public Administration. And so gender issues, gender inequality and gender challenges is part of my major, future major. So it's interesting to be aware of all challenges in the world and to increase my awareness on these issues. And maybe in future, I will have some research projects with gender equality and other things. Thank you for Professor Stefanos in advance for this lecture. So thank you.
Thank you for being here.
So the next is Eva Marie Johnson. Could you please present you?
If you'd like to unmute, or maybe you can't, that's okay.
Maybe Lisa Silvano. Yeah, the audio is not working. Okay,
Okay.
I am present here. I'm
from the
Philippines.
Oh, go on. You go on.
Yeah, Lisa Silvano from Philippines, a social work faculty at LED Formal University of Tacloban City. LED, thank you for this opportunity. Hoping we have get something to know other experiences on gender researchers from this webinar. Thank you, thank you. And the next presenting person is Isiantayeva Asel.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all here. And I'm very pleased to be here as a student of NUZIP for and future master in public administration. And I actually was interested in this topic because I was reading some articles about the gender cliff and gender inequalities in the workplaces. And also saw some like expertise of Mr. Stefanos and was interested in this particular event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Arvin J. Cordeta, could you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone from the Philippines. I am Arvin J. Cordeta. I am an instructor at Leyte Normal University. I came here because I'm interested to know or learn about learn from your research presentations. Thank you very much, and it's nice to see you all.
Good to have you.
Glad to see you. And Sheila De La Cruz.
Good afternoon, everyone. My apologies for not turning on my camera since my internet connectivity here is not stable. By the way, I'm Sheila M. De La Cruz. I am also from the Philippines. I am a college instructor at Leyte Normal University in Tacloban City. And I am also here together with my other colleagues. I am also here to learn researches related to gender. I hope that we enjoy this afternoon session. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Sheila, and welcome to all your colleagues.
Yeah, thank you very much. The next is Maricar Tejero.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I am Maricar C. Tejero. I'm a instructor from Leyte Normal University, and I'm currently studying Doctor of Education major in Physical Education. Nice meeting you all, and thank you for this opportunity. I am looking forward for to gain meaningful insights from this session. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Yankar Bahitnoor, could you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Inkar. I'm from Nazarbayev University. I'm a fourth-year student in Civil Engineering Department. This is my first visit to Gen Con Research Talk. I'm very glad. It's also because I got to know Professor Xenarios 2 years ago when we held HPAIR, and I know that his research focuses on environmental public policy, which is related to my environmental engineering research area, and also as an emerging student female leader in our community, I feel this topic is quite relevant to my experience, and I want to know more about that. That's why I'm here. Glad to see you all.
Great to have you.
Thank you. Magdalena Patigas, could you please introduce yourself? Maybe.
If it's a hard time to speak, that's okay. Don't worry.
Maybe Jeffran Augustine would like to speak. Yeah, maybe later. Lilibet Falarina, could you please?
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I am Lilibet Falarina. I'm a faculty member of Leyte Normal University. So why am I here? Because I am interested to listen to conversations, talk about gender issues. I am pretty sure that I will learn a lot from this conversations, from this talk. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for being here.
And the last but not least, Nurjamal Sandibekova.
I'm just introduce myself.
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see. If we miss somebody, please go on and feel free to unmute if you would like to come say hi.
Hi, it's me, Anara Jardem. I'm a New Zip student, my future major. Can you hear me?
Oh, hi, Anara. Now we can.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So my future major is public administration. I would like looking forward to gather new information and to have some guide for my future research. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Jufran Augustine says good afternoon to all. I'm Jufran Augustine from the Philippines. I'm very interested to learn about language, gender studies, and forensic linguistics. All the best. And no problem about audio glitches, video glitches. This happens, and you're at the same time, you're not required to turn on your video or audio. This is just a chance to give us a chance to learn about one another and inform our discussion. So Let's see. So as we go on, so just to let everyone know that the PowerPoint and also the videos will be shared on our social media channels. So you can find that on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. All right, so now I will turn it over to Almira to introduce our speaker.
Oh yes, today's our speaker is Stefanos Xenarios. He is associate professor at the School of Graduate School of Public Policy, and he has done his PhD in environmental economics from the University of Social and Political Science in Greece. And his research areas include natural resources management, environmental policy and economics, decision aiding systems, hydroeconomic modeling, water energy, food nexus, agricultural policy and rural development. Now, please, we can start the presentation and we will be very interested in your presentation. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Almira. All right. So Stefanos, I will stop my sharing and then you can start with yours. Yes?
Yep. Just a
Wonderful.
minute.
Of course.
Yeah. Please. I just. Is that visible now?
Yes, we're at we see the conclusions.
Is that? Yeah.
It's at the beginning. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Great. Great. Okay, please interrupt me if the slides are not turning over one by one, or if you see blank, or if you don't hear me, or we see some blank pages. Yeah, because I don't have direct, yeah, yeah, feeling on what's going on. I'd like to thank a lot Anna for this invitation. And as said before, I think that's one of the very few noteworthy initiatives on gender aspects in Central Asia. I've been working in Central Asia the last 6 years and have not seen much of work on gender. And I'm working on the environmental issues and environment in Central Asia. So I think it's a great opportunity to further explore research and development aspects there and policy frameworks that could apply in this regard. So how I got involved in the gender, as Almira mentioned, I am not a gender specialist, just to clarify by myself, first of all. My background is environmental economics, and I do not consider myself as an academic much, because I'm the last 3 years in academia, let's say. So the last 20 years, I work in different applied projects in different international organizations in Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. And some of my work has been particularly in North India and South India. So this is a part of the work I did when I was in South India in 2013, 2015. Yeah. And what we did, it was a project, and I will explain. I will give you a snapshot of the project in the end. On actually, it was on climate variability and agriculture, and we would like to see what are the solutions, or what, not the solutions, but what are the approaches somehow to mitigate or alleviate these climate extremes, these weather extremes and climate variability. And one of these aspects had to do with the gender, not equality, but the gender, let's say, accessibility on different aspects of agriculture. And this is the study that's related with. Yeah. So, excuse me for the sore throat. I did the test, it's not coronavirus, but it's still a sore throat. So, so the study objectives is to suggest a gender differentiated impact framework for the assessment of climate variability effects on rural communities in South India. So we do not make a novel, like a groundbreaking theory, neither a super niche, but we try to do something applied on a project in order to realize in which kind of field areas, gender probably is more unbalanced. And if it's unbalanced, how we can find the areas that we can probably improve somehow. So in terms of climate change and gender interview, I guess many of you know that there's a lot of things written in UNFCCC, IPCC, the national action plans. There's a lot of studies, country specifics and in-depth. And there is a lot of also analysis on developing regions and aggravation of gender inequalities. Our focus was mostly on this climate variability and weather extremes in gender in South Asia. We generalize a bit in South Asia, though I would be a bit cautious because I've been working in Bangladesh and Pakistan and Nepal, and South India is quite different from the other areas. However, in terms of crop management and in terms of agricultural management, there are some similarities. That's why we generalized a bit on South Asia. So what's the framework about that we try to step on? The first thing, as all the studies do, and I guess many of you do in your studies, is first of all to map what's going on there, to map the inequalities, right? How did we do that? With some consultation from the literature review, experts, local experts that we had there, and some also representatives from local community. So first of all, to trace the situation. And then we did a qualitative assessment through focus groups. I guess all of you are familiar with these focus groups, that you are gathering people and then you have a facilitator and you ask them what's their thought about, but you try somehow to guideline or facilitate the discussion towards some topics that you are interested in. And that's the community, representatives from the community that were dealt with. And the added value that we may have here was, except for the gender aspects, we want to double check if the qualitative assessment was a bit aligned with some quantitative assessment, because we do not see very frequently this qualitative quantitative, let's say, coupling in research studies. So what we did, we had the questionnaire, individual questionnaire, and we made this questionnaire to the same people that they were participating in the focus groups, to see if they have replied in these focus groups because of the snowball effect, because the one affects the other, or you have some leading voices there, or it was truly what they thought about. And then we had the individual questionnaires, and we did this attribute agreement analysis. It's a sort of, it's not super kind of difficult. It's a bit of inferential statistics, but I will explain what's that about. And we did that on individuals. So we tried to come out with some policy recommendations and some comparative evaluations between the tools we used. So in terms of mapping, as I said before, we had the literature, the experts, and the locals, and the focus out of these three was on the land ownership, on the income contribution, on the decision on financial matters, on the labor access, especially in crops, on the decision on the crop preferences, and to the access on formal and informal village level institutions. In South India, in many other parts of the world, but in South India, there are quite some initiatives for the communities to have accessibility, and as also for let's say for disadvantaged groups in terms of castes, or for people that they are quite poor, so they can have some access to institutions. We would like to see how women have equal access to these institutions. So the qualitative, I said, like with the focus groups, so it was random sampling. We didn't go like purposefully. Of course, random sampling, I mean, you all know when you're dealing with statistics, you cannot have a pure random sampling of all the villages unless you have the list of all the villages. So we had the list and we tried to do randomly, but some people did not appear. So all these things have some sort of bias. We try somehow to keep some equal representation between males and females in the focus groups. In terms of quantitative, we use this attribute agreement analysis. What is attribute agreement analysis? Actually, this is an analysis between peers to peers. So for instance, me and Anna, for instance, have some kind of evaluation, and I'm going and I'm checking the evaluation either anonymously or by knowing who is who, and I'm checking how much I am agreeing to the other peer, and the other doing the same with me, with some sort of, let's say, of benchmarks, some sort kind of of different assessment points. More or less, we do this on these peer review papers, but this is a kind of more kind of consolidated, let's say, sort of analysis in the statistics. So where the area is in in Southeast India. It was in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So actually that was before, it was one state, now there have been two states, and it is in a small region within a state. Sorry, not region, I don't remember how it's called, province. So within this state, we had these two regions, this Nalgonda and Kundur. And you see here a more zoom in kind of like a picture of this Nalgonda and Kundur. So here we had the villages in Nalgonda and Kundur, and like some sort of mapping with the nature, the agriculture. You see the yellow part, so most of it's agriculture, and it's rice agriculture actually. So it is rice because we have some substance farming. We don't have a lot of cash crop farms. So we don't have commercial big farms a lot. We do have, but not that many. And that's why, and I have to say that probably if you go to make sampling in other areas, agricultural areas, that they are going for cash crops and commercial farming, quite probably the responses could be quite different, because the people do not have to live by on daily wage or on daily substance because of the agriculture. Yeah, then you have the barren land is very small, and the settlements. I have to mention here that the climate situation in terms of weather, as you know here, they have the monsoon periods. They are very much affected by the rain in terms of floods, but also in terms of droughts as well. So all in all, we had in Nalgonda, we had 6 villages, and in Kundur, we have 9 villages. We tried to codify them, and I explained that why, because of the statistical analysis. Some technical features. In the Nakolda villages, the surface water was like 30%, 35% dependence. The groundwater was what they are depending on. And that meant that the groundwater give you more kind of freedom, that you had more water when you needed, but it was more cost because you had to drill the water. Rice, it was a dominant crop, 71%. That was mostly for substance farming. As I said, they had to live by the rice. They were selling some as well. Cotton was there. In the other bunch of villages in Kundur, they had like 66% of surface water. Surface water does not give you that much freedom, but it's more regulated from the operators. The groundwater was less, but it's getting increased even there. Rice was less and cotton was more, because we see that they're going more for commercial things, because cotton is not that for doing for their own consumption. In terms of the features, we had 90% of electricity access. I have to say that I have been throughout different years in India, and despite what's going on in India now with the farmers, we have heard about the strong protests for farming communities. There is quite some progress in terms of infrastructure. It's different in different states. India, it's a continent itself. It's a huge thing. So it's different to go to Bihar, to the east. It's different to go to up there to Himalayas Pradesh, or to go to Kerala. It's totally different world. But there is a progress altogether, and we have noticed that also in the south. South in India, in South India, people are much more. I'm not the one to discriminate, but we see that people are more literate because they didn't have this commercial kind of profile as they have in the north. So in terms of literacy, people were quite literate, I had to say, in terms in the farming. So 1 out of 2 had primary, and that's quite an issue. And secondary, 1 out of 3. They had some access to farming machinery. So we ran 6 focus groups with 15 people each, so 90 people, and 9 focus groups with 15 people each in the other set, 135. So it was statistically was a robust, let's say, statistical number of people, just to have some reliable findings. So we did some pilot testing. You see only women here, but on the other side are the men. So it was not that we had only women, as I said. Yeah. So that was a pilot testing in Andhra Pradesh and in Tamil Nadu. So we had to try to inform people in advance what we're gonna do. And this pilot testing, first of all, had also information about the crops, the water resistant, the heat resistant crops, and the changings of the rice crops. And in this regard, we told them also about the gender assessment that we'd like to do, and the climate extremes, and what we are asking them regarding their behaviors and their preference in the accessibility on different parts of of their daily life in terms of gender. So when we did the focus groups, we came out with some sort of, let's say, impressions. I call them statements here, but it's some impressions that we had from these focus groups. The important thing that they were like 15 focus groups, 150 people, and these were relatively homogeneous, and that's the important thing. Yeah, so we didn't have huge diversity within these focus groups outcomes. So we had some statements about the inequalities. So what do they feel? They feel that the farmland is owned by, and not only feeling, but also some data related, is owned by the female member only in 30%. Even when the land is owned by the women, they still cannot have control of the property rights. So even they have taken as a dowry, and you know, probably in South India and in India, actually, the dowry is a big issue. People are getting in huge debts in order to have this dowry. And they are working for years to having this dowry for their daughters. So they still cannot have proper control of property rights. When women contribute up to half of the cash income in the household earnings directly as labor or indirectly. By the way, in labor, women, at least to my years when I was there, they were paid about 60% of the daily wage in comparison to the men. The decision on regular financial matters are mostly taken by men. When the women participate in financial decisions, they're usually young women, women that they are more literate and they have more degrees of freedom, let's say, to participate in these kind of matters. About half of the cases, wife and husband together decide on what crops to be grown on that farm. And about 30% of the cases, the male children decide on what crops to be grown. In one out of two cases, women belong to these self-help groups or relevant association. As said before, there are a lot of institutions that they are trying to encourage women to having some other aside initiatives and entrepreneurships, either with crafts, either with like beehives, or having some more like a self-entrepreneuring kind of initiatives. And this is more institutionalized. And there is a low, eventually also in 9, there is a low representation of women in decision taking at community level. That has to do with institutions and what people think about. In terms of concerns, men, when things are getting worse with climate variability and weather extremes, and that has to do with droughts a lot, and to a lesser extent with floods, they're concerned about the labor security. So what they're going to do, and many of them, they had loans and they have to pay back the loans. And probably you've heard about suicides in South India because of the very large loans they have to pay back. And men are taking their loans of their own name. So they're feeling very, very high anxiety about this. The women, they are very concerned about the household food security and about how to feed their children. There is increased violence on women. That's a statement that it was not only the physical violence, but the psychological violence. The most frequent initiative for men is to get loans, as I said, from official, but also and mostly unofficial sources. And the interest rate of the unofficial sources is exorbitant and is increased by week. The most frequent initiative for women, on the other hand, is to go and ask support from the extensive family, either from their families, from their parents, or from their uncles, or from their cousins, and so on. In case of droughts and deficient rainfall years, they try to change cropping patterns to water-resistant crops or shift to livestock. That's another alternative. What do they do in terms of initiatives? They try to have some training, and that's what we did with this program, on new cultivating approach, training also on livestock, and for women only, as I said before, on self-employment initiatives. And it seems to take stock the last years, and that's a very encouraging aspect. So that was the qualitative aspect, what we did from the focus groups in terms of statements, in terms of feelings or the data, concerns, and initiatives. And then we try to see by asking them individually, okay, fellows, you said these things on the focus groups. Let's see, did you believe on this individually? Or you think that it was like more kind of, leadership kind of feature that came by there and dominated the whole discussion, and you do this, yes, 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 consenting kind of figure. Yeah. So when we asked them individually, all of them, and each of them in these villages, we saw that the rate of agreement was kind of validation. It's quite high. It was above 80%, about 85 or so, except but for two villages. That was like about 50% and like 55 or so for some reasons that we didn't understand why, because we had to understand the features in the village. But the more interesting thing is that if you see here the dots, the black dots in between, you see that the rate of agreement is quite identical in each village. So each village has its own behavioral pattern. So it was not one size fits all. So each village seems to have different understanding of these kind of gender inequalities. Further on, we ask them question by question, as I said, and we try to differentiate between males and females. So we try to see if the males probably have different understanding from the females in the outcome of the focus groups. Yeah. So again, the rate of agreement was not that lower. So it was you see here the dot here is the mean, and here is the range in terms of highest and the lowest. So we saw that it was like above 70 to 80%. That's a very high consent, except for three cases. The one case has to do with the cash income. Men and women did not agree that the women bring half of the cash. Especially men, they said no, they bring it in kind, but this is not equal to what we bring in money. The other one had to do with violence. Individually, they did not agree that there is high violence in terms of extreme weather events. And the third one was about also about the children that they decided on the crops. So they said, no, it's not the children they decided on the crops, the male children, but it's mostly the men and secondary the women. Except for these three cases, all the others seem to have a high convergence in terms of what we find out on the focus groups. So some indicators, let's say, that we came out with this kind of study is that we understand that weather extremes impact differently, for sure, the gender in developing regions of South India, and the land ownership and the management constitutes a milestone, a major driver of gender inequality. So we understand that the property rights are a very, very, very big determinant in there. Common training programs in terms of gender respect on agricultural management should be prioritized, because we see that especially the young women, they are really thirsty on having more training and more initiatives on agricultural management. And this could be a real game changer there, because there are families that they are living on the edge, and if they earn a bit more, they can make their life better. And besides that, they probably get out of this poverty vicious circle. Each community may react uniquely for the confrontation of drought mostly effects. As you saw here with the dots, we didn't have a homogeneous response when we did it individually. So blanket approaches, as many governments do, okay, make a climate change kind of program all over South India, or a climate change program all over Kazakhstan, may not be that effective. So we have to go probably beforehand and ask people how do they feel, ask people what their needs, and then make different programs depending on their needs. Because many of these programs are not that effective when you do ex post, and then you ask people, okay, what do you feel about the program? But then it's too late because the program has been applied and the money has gone. The climate change policy initiatives should be designed in consultation with regional and local authorities. I'm currently working on river basin management, actually, and we do the same thing. The river basin management in Kazakhstan has been applied in 8 different basins, and it is a bit top-down thing. So now we try, and they have established, however, river basin management authorities on local level, and we try to see how these river basin management authorities feel like about the basin needs. It's more or less similar situation, but on a water level. This program has been taken, as I said, through a bigger project called Climate Adapt. That was in my times I was working in Norway, but much of my time I was in South India, actually, in Bangladesh. And that's a picture of what people are doing with, it's like called rice paddy, submerged like rice. So they submerge the whole rice there. It's quite a lot of waste of water, but anyway, and there's a lot of women working on this aspect, and they are paid proportionally about 6% of it. And that's a study that came out. For those of you who are interested, I'm very glad to share the study out of it. Yeah. Thank you very much for this. I hope that it was not that boring along this South India traveling. So the floor back to you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Stefanos. Really, really appreciate your sharing this research with us. So at this point, we have some time for questions and comments and thoughts from the rest of you. Feel free to just unmute or raise a hand or say something in the chat if you'd like to ask a question for a speaker. As people are collecting their thoughts, I get to start off. So Stefanos, at this point, what are you thinking, right, in terms of where to go from here, and what you see as, you mentioned not just being an academic, right, that you had actually most of your life in this other realm. So what would you suggest, I guess, in both directions? In the academic front, right, you have the publication that you're sharing and you're here with us, but then clearly there's an even better, not even just but, right, and there's this other important advocacy and addressing real issues.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. As I said in the beginning, I think there is a lot of room for research in Central Asia in terms of gender differentiation, and I have not seen, except for very, very good initiatives you are taking on, I have not seen much of work done in this respect. And I'm not, I don't proclaim myself like a gender specialist by no means. I just like to see what's the accessibility and what's the potential of female gender in different parts of let's say of initiatives and activities. Mostly I'm working on environmental aspects, and I would like to see in this regard. And what I sense, I've been living in Central Asia the last 6 years. I've been living in all Central Asian countries except for Turkmenistan. And I have a sense on what's going on a bit in Central Asia, especially in rural areas. And what I noticed that probably because of the Soviet past, probably because of the mentality is totally different from South India. The women here, they have a more pivotal role on how they contribute, how they have an understanding, and how they're taking opportunities. However, what I noticed in some rural areas in Kazakhstan, in Kyrgyzstan, in Tajikistan, is that many times women are deprived from education. I mean, like they are getting 15 years old and they say, okay, you had enough now. You are getting back home and you are doing some vocational thing, or you're not doing anything and you were waiting for the groom, or that's your life and you have to be happy with. And I notice, I mean, also in terms of initiatives, that although there is nowadays, especially in Kazakhstan, I've been traveling in some areas in the south, there's a huge appetite, especially for young women, to get involved in different initiatives. I'm talking from the environmental point. There is still, these breaks, mostly these society-related breaks. This reflects that you say, okay, I'm a woman, I should not be that much involved in river basin because there are men's jobbing there. And while they were trying to get somehow engaged, they felt like a bit hesitant because they said, okay, what what the community gonna say if I get involved. So I would like also to hear from the participants' point of view, what do they feel about these things? Because I had this sense, but I may be probably misleading.
Right. Right. So how do y'all feel? Right. I saw Almeida, you just turned on your camera, and maybe you have a comparative experience, right, from India and then also from where you've lived.
Yeah.
Grown up.
Okay, so I have something to say because in India, when I was studying, I used to study Maharashtra, and we had a questionnaire, and we used to go to slums to get some interviews, and I was also aware about the dowry, which is a major contributor to India's gender imbalance, and also the tradition of sati. Sati, when it's a tradition when a widow whose husband is dead has to like sacrifice herself and burn herself, and this kind of things I learned. And we also watched a movie during our feminism class where there is a like nation in rural village where there are no women at all, and when a girl is born, she is killed in a milk, and one girl can marry like 4 or 5 brothers just as a person who should give birth. So I learned these things, and there are many like similarities between like South Asian and Central Asia in the sense of Uzbekistan, where I come from. So in Kazakhstan, the situation is really different, as you were telling that the south of Kazakhstan is different from the north, right? So the south is close to Uzbekistan, where they have many similarities. The thing of dowry, because in Tashkent, a girl cannot marry a man without a dowry. So, and the bride has to pay everything. So in Kazakhstan, it's like something impossible. So it's really different because Uzbeks had sedentary life and Kazakhs had nomadic life, where women enjoyed more emancipation. So these things and comparison similarities I learned. So what I was going actually to ask about your like personal observation, like staying and working at the Nazarbayev University, and what kind of similarities you have seen in this kind of research.
Yeah.
Like for me, like in South Asia and in Central Asia, I have like observed similarities in the sense of dowry and girls being less emancipated, and the number of educated women because of mentality and traditional overview. But in Kazakhstan, women are like lucky that they are more Russified and Europeized, and they like enjoy the more freedom in comparison with other neighboring sedentary nations.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I quite agree with you.
So
in this,
what I was going to like ask
yeah,
you,
sorry.
your personal experiment, like from the point of like observation and research in India and in Central Asia. So you said that in South it's different, so in North it's like quite.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that as you said, this nomadic way of living, and also, for instance, the Kazakh and Kyrgyz, that they had the nomadic way of living, right? And they were especially Kyrgyz, were mountains kind of like situation. Although in Kyrgyzstan, you know that this kind of bride in kidnapping, it's very, it's very, sometimes it's very often, and when they kidnap the bride for, now they do for fun, but sometimes they do for quite a few times they do for real. Anyway. Yeah. But But what I noticed is, and that I saw also a question from Marcel, and I would like to respond to that, that many times these things go hand in hand with the education and with the literacy of the communities. So and of course, the past plays a determinant role, but it's not always about the access to natural resources. Because there is some belief that if you have access to natural resources, then you get more developed and you have more money. If you go to the Gulf states, it's not the same. Qatar, Dubai, I mean, there's Saudi Arabia. They have access to natural resources a lot, but the quality is quite different there. So I think that in Kazakhstan, and you mentioned rightly the South Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. I've been living in Tashkent for about half a year, and I have a understanding. I mean, and especially in the northern parts, in the Dowry, and this feeling of pride, and this feeling of having everything settled for the women. What I sense is that the more we are moving towards urbanization, the more we are moving towards like commercial centers, and the women have accessibility to educational structures, the more these inequalities are mitigated, because they cannot have anymore any strong ground, because the women are becoming more and more independent in terms of incomes, and also they become more self-determined. So I think in comparison to Central Asia and South Asia, there is no relation, especially with Kazakhstan, because, as you said, because of the Soviet past, because of the nomadic issues, because women is considered equal. The religion, I I don't know to what extent the religion, and I'm not to condemn by no means Muslim religion or Christian religion. I don't know what's the determinant there in terms of religion, but I do not see a very, very big effect in Central Asia in terms of religion and gender aspects. In comparison to many other countries, things slightly changed in Kyrgyzstan a bit, and Tajikistan a bit, but not that much if you compare with other countries. So back to Asel, about I see in the chat about the cultural beliefs. Yes, I think cultural belief for sure is there, and you cannot unroot such things. But I think literacy in the generation to come is very drastic. For instance, in the villages where we're working, they were about 30 kilometers away from Hyderabad. Hyderabad now is the Silicon Valley of South India. So everyone who tries to find his or her own luck goes to Hyderabad to work. And there's huge urbanization, rapid. I mean, people are running there. And of course, the women that are 30 kilometers away from the communities, they also go there. They're working as cleaners. They're working also as daily workers in the construction, and they're earning much more money than working in the crops. And this is going to change the situation. This is going to be a game changer, either we like it or not. So I think they can overcome these cultural aspects one way or another. To avoid such work, extreme weather is considered hazardous to health. I don't know about the health situation, and the extreme weather. I think, according to the study we did, and my sense being there, was like people didn't have anything else to do. The drought was coming, and they were helpless. And where the women said, okay, they were going to cousins, so they're going to their parents, and it was not that much of health, but it was like that it was not that they didn't have to eat. They had to eat rice. But if something was going wrong, they were out in the margin. So they were trying to have like a salvation lifeline, let's say, right? From their parents or something else. And many of them, they were going to the cities. And of course, this is a dangerous situation because we saw that prostitution was increased in cities because of the rural village girls that they were going there. And that was an issue that had to be resolved somehow. On the other hand, hopefully many other girls and many other women, they had some more decent jobs and they were coming out from these communities, that they were condemned to harvest crops, etc. And some other things that some of the women, and that was a really nice message that we saw, became entrepreneurs. So they were doing rice farming, and they were also doing some crafts with these clay pots, and they have some income out of it. And they had also this collective, these cooperatives, small cooperatives that they were gathering money. And they were going to they're taking these micro banks, they're taking these micro credits, and they were putting more money to their entrepreneurship, and they were having like some small sort of, uh, let's say, business, and that's really nice. I think we can get out of there, but the major determinant to get out of there, and I'm sorry, I'm a bit strong advocate of that, it's to get out of poverty. Poverty cannot help you. I mean, I'm not saying that who is not poor will be gender equal, but who is poor has a very strong determinant to become gender unequal.
One more factor that I want to add, and I will give the floor to others for a question. So is a thing that has to be taken into consideration that consanguineous marriage. Consanguineous marriage is a marriage when a man marries a girl from his blood, like cousin sister or cousin brother. It's a very widely used tradition in Asia. And the reason for that is the poverty that the gender inequality in land ownership also is this, because they don't want to marry another foreigner, like from another family. In order to keep the wealth in their family, they marry their cousin sisters and brothers. And as a result, there are many very ill children. And this tradition is observed in Uzbekistan as well. This is very problematic issue. And in comparison with these countries, Kazakhstan is very fine, because they check usually 7 generations before marrying. Have you heard about it? So
Yes.
I think that's also another reason for gender inequality in land ownership, that they may marry their cousins, and this
Yeah.
problem also.
We have about 2 more minutes, Stefanos.
Yeah, and finish off. Almira, yes, this is happening in Uzbekistan. I've been off this, and it happens also in Tajikistan. And this is because they want to keep the plot, the land, and that has also to do with the poverty. If the land goes less, then we're gonna feel a bit disadvantaged. But hopefully, and luckily, these things are changing nowadays. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stefanos. If you want to give a round of applause, right? A virtual round of applause to Stefanos. Really appreciate you being here with us and this discussion, right? You're bringing up topics that, as you're mentioning, looking at the gender dynamic that isn't delved into as much as we really should. And we look forward to being able to work with you more and the opportunities as we move forward. I want to thank you all for being here. This is really wonderful to see everyone. Wanted to let y'all know about our next talk. So in a couple weeks, we will have, so on February 24th, should robots win or lose? Robots losing playing strategy positively affects child learning. And so we hope that you join us. It's at a little bit of an earlier time.